The desert wind howled across the red rocks of Kepler 442 as Day One checked his salvage scanner one more time. He had been working alone on this planet for 3 years now, far from Earth and far from the memories that haunted him. The work was simple: find crashed ships, strip them for parts, sell what he could, and survive another day in the quiet emptiness of space. His scanner beeped suddenly. Something big was falling from the sky. Day One looked up and saw fire streaking across the purple sunset, a ship in not a small one. It was spinning out of control, leaving a trail of black smoke. Behind it, the vessel crashed into the mountains about 20 mi north of his settlement. The ground shook beneath his feet. He stood there for a moment, thinking. Crashed ships meant salvage. Salvage meant money, but big ships also meant trouble, especially military ones. And that ship looked military still. Curiosity won. Day One climbed into his old rover and drove toward the crash site. It took him 2 hours to reach the mountains. The ship had carved a massive trench through the rock when it landed. Fires still burned around the wreckage. As Day One got closer, he recognized the design. His blood went cold. This was a Thaian warship. The Thaian Empire controlled half the known galaxy. They were powerful, ancient, and they did not like humans very much. What was one of their ships doing out here in the middle of nowhere? Day One parked his rover and approached carefully. His hand rested on the plasma pistol at his belt. The ship's hull was torn open in several places. He climbed through one of the breaches and entered the dark interior. Bodies lay everywhere. Then crew members, all dead. Their blue-gray skin was covered in burns and blast marks. These were not crash injuries. Someone had attacked this ship before it fell. Day One moved deeper into the wreckage, his flashlight cutting through the smoke. He found the bridge. More bodies. The captain sat in his chair. Hole burned through his chest. This was an assassination, not an accident. He was about to leave when his scanner picked up a life sign, weak but definitely alive, following the signal. Dewan found a sealed compartment near the back of the ship. It took him 10 minutes to cut through the door. Inside was a survival pod, still powered in, humming softly. Through the transparent cover he saw a child. She was small, maybe 6 years old by human standards. Her skin was the pale blue-white of Thaivan royalty, and delicate glowing patterns marked her face and arms. Those patterns meant something important. Day One had seen enough than propaganda to recognize royal bloodlines. This was not just any child. This was a princess. He should leave right now, walk away and forget he ever saw this. Thaian politics were dangerous, and royal Thaian politics were deadly. If he took this child, he would be putting a target on his back that would never go away. But she was hurt. He could see blood on her forehead through the pod's window, and she was alone. Everyone else on this ship was dead. Dewan cursed under his breath and opened the survival pod. The child did not wake up as he carefully lifted her out. She was light, much lighter than a human child would be. He wrapped her in his jacket and carried her back to his rover. Behind him, the Thaian ship's reactor began to whine. It was going to explode soon. He drove fast, racing against the coming blast. When the ship finally exploded, the shockwave nearly flipped his rover, but they made it. They were safe. Back at his settlement, Dewan laid the child on his medical table. His hands shook as he Worked, he was not a doctor, but he had learned field medicine during the war. The equipment he had was meant for humans, not thy, but biology was. Biology. Stop the bleeding, clean the wounds. Keep her stable, it took him all night. By morning, the child's breathing had steadied. The glowing patterns on her skin pulsed softly with each breath. She would live for 3 days. She slept, day one stayed nearby, monitoring her vital signs and wondering what he had gotten himself into. He searched his database for information about Thyan royalty. The patterns on her skin matched the royal family exactly. If anyone found out she was here, they would come, both Thyan forces and their enemies would want her. On the 4th day she woke up, her eyes opened. Suddenly, wide and afraid, she saw day one and screamed. In one quick movement, she rolled off the table and pressed herself against the wall, making sounds in the Thyan language that he did not understand. Duan raised his hands. Slowly, he spoke in calm, gentle tones. Even though he knew she could not understand his words, he pointed to himself, then to her, then to the medical supplies. He was trying to show her that he was not a threat. The child watched him with huge, terrified eyes. She was shaking. He backed away slowly and left food and water near her. Then he left the room, giving her space. Over the next few hours, he heard her moving around. Eventually, the food disappeared. This became their routine. Day one would leave food. The child would take it when he was not looking. Slowly, day by day, she stopped running. When he entered the room, she started watching him as he worked on repairs and cooked meals. Weeks passed. Day one began teaching her simple words. He would point to objects and say their names in his language. Water, food, home, safe. The child was smart. She learned quickly. One day, Daewon was repairing a broken scanner when he felt small hands tugging on his shirt. He looked down. The child was standing next to him, holding a tool out to him. It was exactly the tool he needed. He smiled and took it. She smiled back. Just a little. Months went by. The child, whom Duan started calling Nari because he needed something to call her, became more comfortable. She helped him with small tasks. She laughed when he made funny faces. She fell asleep on the couch while he worked late into the night. One evening, as Daewon was making dinner, Nari walked up to him. She had been practicing human words for weeks now. She looked up at him with her big eyes and spoke clearly in his language for the first time. Daewon froze. That word, he knew that word. It meant father. Nari smiled at him and repeated it. Daewon felt something break open inside his chest. He knelt down and pulled her into a hug. The child from the stars wrapped her small arms around his neck and held on tight. He was not her real father. He knew that somewhere out there her mother was probably searching for her, but in that moment, none of that mattered. This child trusted him. She felt safe with him, and he would protect her with everything he had, even if it cost him everything. 2 years had passed since the crash. Nari was 8 years old now, and the settlement that had once been just Daewon's lonely home had become something else entirely. It had become a family home. The walls that were once bare metal now had drawings that Nari had made, pictures of the red desert, of strange alien flowers she had found, of Daewon working on his machines. The kitchen had 2 chairs now. Instead of one, the storage room had been converted into a bedroom with a small bed and shelves filled with collected treasures, rocks broken, circuit boards and small mechanical toys that Day One had built for her. Nari sat at the workshop table, her small hands carefully soldering a wire into place, her tongue stuck out slightly as she concentrated, a habit she had picked up from watching Day One work. The glowing patterns on her skin pulsed brighter when she was focused. Day One had learned to read those patterns over the years. He could tell when she was happy, sad, or thinking hard about something. Good, Dayan said, checking her work. You are getting better at this. Nari beamed with pride. She spoke in a mixture of human and thy languages, now switching between them. Without thinking, can I help you with the rover engine tomorrow if you finish your studies first? Dayan replied. He had been teaching her everything he knew, math, science, mechanics, survival skills, but he also made sure she did not forget her own culture. Using data he had recovered from the crashed ship, he taught her then history and language. She needed to know where she came from, even if she was growing up human. That night as they ate dinner together, Nari asked a question that made Dayan's heart stop. Allah, do I have a mother? Day One put down his fork slowly. They had never talked about this directly. He had always known this conversation would come, but he had hoped it would be later, much later. 2000. Day One. 2000. Yes, he said quietly. Where is she? Nari's glowing eyes looked at him with pure innocence. I do not know, Day One answered, which was not exactly a lie. He did not know where the Thyan Queen was at this exact moment. But I am sure she thinks about you every day. I won round. I won one. Nari thought about this for a moment, then she reached across the table and took Day One's hand. It is okay, I have you. Day One squeezed her hand gently, but inside guilt was eating at him. He had intercepted dozens of thy transmissions over the past 2 years, search parties, investigations, rewards for information. The entire Thyvnan Empire was looking for their lost princess, and he was hiding her. He told himself it was for her safety. The people who had attacked her ship were still out there. If he revealed her location, those same enemies might come to finish what they started. But part of him knew the truth. He was being selfish. He did not want to lose her. The next morning, Day One drove to the nearest settlement to trade for supplies. It was a small outpost with maybe 30 people, mostly miners and traders. He usually went alone, but today Nari had begged to come with him. She wanted to see other people. He should have said no. The trading post was busy when they arrived. Day One kept Nari close to him, her hood pulled up to hide her distinctive skin and glowing patterns. Most people did not look twice at them. Humans and aliens mixed freely on frontier worlds like this, but then Day One saw something that made his blood turn cold. A Thyvnan scout ship was parked at the landing pad. 3 Thyan soldiers in light armor were questioning the trading post owner. They were showing him a holographic image. Even from a distance, Day One could tell it was an image of Nari, or at least what she would have looked like 2 years ago. We need to go, Dayan whispered, putting his hand on Nari's shoulder. Right now. Do not run, just walk with me. They turned toward the exit, moving as casually as they could. They were almost to the rover when Nari's hood slipped back. One of the Thyan soldiers looked up at exactly the wrong moment. His eyes widened. He saw Nari's face, saw the royal patterns on her skin. For a split second, everyone froze. Then the soldier reached for his communicator. Day 1 grabbed Nari and ran. He heard shouting. Behind them, the soldier was calling for backup, his voice urgent and excited. They had found the princess. After 2 years of searching, they had finally found her. Day 1 threw Nari into the rover and gunned the engine. The vehicle roared to life and shot forward, kicking up dust and rocks. Behind them, the Thaian soldiers were running for their ship. "Apa, what is happening?" Nari's voice was scared. "Hold on tight," was all Day 1 said. He drove like he had never driven before, pushing the rover to its limits. The desert was his home. He knew every canyon and rock formation, but the Thaian had a ship. They would catch up. Eventually, his mind raced. He could not outrun them forever. They would track him back to the settlement, and then what? Fight 3 armed soldiers, die protecting a child who was not even his. But she was his in every way that mattered. She was his daughter. Duan made a decision. He changed course, heading not toward home but toward an old mining complex he knew about. It was abandoned, full of tunnels and places to hide. Maybe he could lose them there. By some time to think, they made it to the complex with minutes to spare. Day 1 parked the rover deep inside a tunnel and killed the engine. He could hear the then ship circling overhead, scanning for them. Nari was shaking. Day 1 pulled her close, holding her tight. "Listen to me," he said quietly. "Those soldiers outside, they are your people. They have been looking for you for a very long time. I do not want to go with them." Nari whispered, "I want to stay with you." I know. Day 1 felt tears burning in his eyes. "But they will not stop looking, and more will come. An entire fleet will come. Then we will hide better," Nari said with fierce determination. "We will go somewhere they cannot find us." Day 1 almost smiled. She was so brave, this little girl from the stars, but he knew running was not a real solution, not anymore. The then ship landed near the entrance to the mining complex. Day 1 could hear their scanners pinging, searching the tunnels. It would not take them long to find the rover. He looked at Nari, memorizing her face, the way her patterns glowed in the darkness, the trust in her eyes. For 2 years she had been his whole world, and now that world was ending. No matter what happens, Day 1 said, "I want you to remember that I love you. You are my daughter, not because of blood, but because you are in my heart. Nothing will ever change that." Nari threw her arms around his neck. "You are my Apa. Forever." The footsteps were getting closer now. The soldiers were in the tunnels. Day 1 stood up, putting himself between Nari and the tunnel entrance. His hand moved to his plasma pistol. He would not let them take her without answers. He needed to know she would be safe. He needed to know they would protect her. The first soldier appeared at the end of the tunnel, weapon raised. Behind him, 2 more. They saw Day 1 and Nari and stopped for a long moment. Nobody moved. Then the lead soldier spoke in accented human language. "Step away from the princess. Human, you are under arrest for kidnapping royalty. I saved her life." Day 1 said coldly, "I found her in a crashed ship. Everyone else was dead. That does not give you the right to keep her." The soldier replied, "She belongs with her people. She was hurt and alone. Where were you?" The soldier's expression shifted slightly, guilt maybe or shame, before anyone could say anything else. The soldier's communicator crackled to life. A voice spoke in the Urgent and commanding, the soldier listened, his eyes going wide. He looked at Nari with something like shock. Then, back at day 1, the Queen is coming. The soldier said quietly, you have 1 hour to prepare yourself, human 1 hour before everything changes. Then royal fleet arrived exactly 1 hour later. Day 1 watched from the entrance of the mining complex as massive warships descended from the clouds, their hulls gleaming in the afternoon sun. He had never seen so much military power in one place. These were not scout ships, these were vessels built to conquer worlds. The largest ship landed in the desert, its size casting a shadow over the entire area. A ramp extended from its side and soldiers in ornate armor marched out in perfect formation. They formed 2 lines, creating a pathway. Then she appeared. Queen Hana was tall even for a Th-Ven. Her skin was the purest white blue, and the royal patterns that covered her face and arms glowed with intense brightness. She wore robes that seemed to be made of light itself, flowing around her as she walked. Her presence was overwhelming. This was a being who ruled billions, who commanded fleets, who shaped the fate of entire star systems, and she was Nari's mother. Day 1 felt Nar's hand slip into his. The child was trembling. She remembered this woman somewhere deep in her memories, but 2 years was a long time for a child. The Queen was more like a distant dream than a real person. Queen Hana's eyes locked onto Nari. Immediately, the powerful, controlled expression on her face cracked. Raw emotion flooded through, joy and relief and pain all mixed together. She took a step forward, then another, moving faster until she was almost running. Nari, she breath dropping to her knees in front of her daughter. My little star, you are alive. You are really alive. Nari looked up at Day 1. He nodded gently, giving her permission. Nari took a small step toward the Queen. Hana reached out with shaking hands and touched Nari's face as if she could not believe she was real. Tears ran down the Queen's face, making her glowing patterns shimmer. I thought I had lost you forever. I searched everywhere, every world, every station, every ship. Where have you been? Nari opened her mouth to answer, but then she looked back at Day 1 again. The Queen noticed. She followed Nari's gaze to the human standing a few feet away. You, Hana said, her voice changing from soft to hard in an instant. You are the one who has kept my daughter from me. I am the one who saved her life. Day 1 replied quietly. Hana stood up, her full height impressive. She looked at Day 1 with eyes that could freeze stars. Explain yourself, human. Where did you find her? Why did you not contact the Empire immediately? Day 1 met her gaze without flinching. He told her everything: the crashed ship, the dead crew, the survival pod, Nari's injuries, the months it took for her to trust him, the realization that whoever attacked the ship might still be looking for her. I kept her safe. Day 1 finished. I know I should have contacted you, but I did not know who to trust. I did not know if the people who attacked your ship were still hunting for her. Hana listened to all of this with a controlled expression. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. You expect me to believe you kept my daughter for 2 years out of concern for her safety, not for political leverage, not for ransom. Believe what you want. Day 1 said, I did what I thought was right. The Queen stepped closer to him. They were almost the same height, and her glowing eyes bore into his. Do you have any idea what you have done. She is not just any child, she is the heir to the Thyvan throne. She has responsibilities, duties, a destiny that you cannot possibly understand. She is 8 years old. Day One shot back. She is a child who needed someone to take care of. Sorry. That is what I understand. They won, how dare you? Hana's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. You are nothing, a human scavenger on a worthless rock of a planet. You have no right to speak to me about my own daughter. That was when Nari spoke up, her small voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Allah takes care of me. Everyone froze. The queen turned slowly to look at Nari. What did you just say? Nari stepped back toward Day One and took his hand again. I said Appa takes care of me. He makes me food. He teaches me things. He keeps me safe. Appa. Hana repeated the word slowly. Her expression was unreadable. That is a human word for father. Why are you using that word? Because that is what he is, Nari said simply. He is my Appa. The queen stared at her daughter like she had been slapped. Around them, the then soldiers shifted uncomfortably. In Thayan culture, family bloodlines were sacred. The idea of cross-species adoption was not just unusual, it was unthinkable. Taboo. Hana looked at Day One with something that might have been horror or might have been rage. What have you done to her? What lies did you fill her head with? No lies, Day One said firmly. I told her the truth, that she has a mother who probably misses her very much, that she comes from a great people with a proud history. I taught her your language, your customs, everything I could learn from the data I recovered from the crash, and yet she calls you father. Hana's voice shook slightly. She looks at you like you are her family instead of me. I did not ask her to, Day One said quietly. She decided that on her own. Nari pulled on Day One's hand. Appa, I am scared. Day One knelt down next to her. It is okay to be scared, but this is your mother. She has been looking for you for a very long time. She loves you very much. A1, let's stay one, but I want to stay with you, Nari said, her eyes filling with tears. Those words hit Queen Hana like a physical blow. She took a step back, her hand going to her chest. For a moment the powerful ruler disappeared, and all that was left was a mother whose child did not recognize her. The queen's chief advisor, an older than male, stepped forward. Your Majesty, perhaps it would be best if we return to the ship. We can sort this situation out properly there. Hana nodded slowly, not taking her eyes off Nari. Am I under arrest? Day One asked. That depends, Hana said coldly. Thayan High Court will need to hear this story. They will need to decide if you are guilty of kidnapping royalty or if you are telling the truth. Either way, you are coming with us. Day One looked down at Nari. Will she be safe? She is my daughter, Hana snapped. Of course she will be safe. Then I will come. Clear's throat. Day One said. He squeezed Nari and LT Unk and GT hand. I will not leave you alone. Queen's expression softened slightly at that. She saw the way Nari held on to the human, the way she trusted him completely. It confused her and angered her, but somewhere beneath those feelings was something else. Curiosity, maybe, or the beginning of understanding. They walked together to the royal ship. Nari stayed between Day One and Hana. Holding both their hands, the queen kept looking down at her daughter as if she still could not believe Nari was real. Inside the ship, everything was Beautiful and strange, the walls were made of some kind of living crystal that pulsed with light. The air smelled like flowers Day One had never encountered. Soldiers and crew members stopped and bowed deeply as the Queen passed. They reached a large room with windows. Looking out at the desert, Hana turned to face Day One. You will be given quarters during our journey to the home world, she said formally. You will not be harmed unless the court decides you are guilty. You have my word on that. Thank you, Daewon said. Hana hesitated, then asked the question that had been burning in her mind. Did you treat her well these past 2 years? Was she happy? Quote, Day One thought about all the small moments, teaching Nari to read, fixing broken machines together, her laughter when he told silly jokes, the drawings on the walls, the good night stories. I tried my best to make her happy, he said honestly. I am not perfect, I am just a man, but I loved her like she was my own, and I still do. Queen Hana's glowing patterns flickered. She looked at Nari, who was watching them both with wide eyes. We will see what the court decides, the Queen said quietly, but know this, human, whether you meant to or not, you have created an impossible situation. My daughter should not love you. By all our laws and customs, this bond should not exist, and yet it does. She paused, then added in a whisper, and I do not know how to fix it. The journey to the Thyvnan home world took 12 days. During that time, Day One lived in a strange kind of limbo. He was not a prisoner exactly, but he was not free either. Guards stood outside his quarters at all times. He was allowed to walk certain parts of the ship, but always with an escort. The only time the restrictions lifted was when Nari visited him, which she did every day. Queen Hana had tried to keep them apart at first, but Nari had cried so much that the Queen finally gave in. So each afternoon, Nari would come to Day One's quarters and they would talk and play games and pretend everything was normal. During these visits, Hana would sometimes watch from the doorway. Day One could feel her eyes on him, studying the way he interacted with Nari, analyzing, trying to understand. On the 7th day, Hana finally spoke to him directly. She came to his quarters alone without guards, which surprised him. May I sit? She asked. Day One gestured to the chair across from him. The Queen sat with perfect posture, her glowing pattern steady and controlled. I have been reviewing the data we recovered from the crashed ship, Hana said quietly. You were telling the truth. My security chief confirmed that the attack was coordinated by members of my own court, nobles who feared the reforms I have been pushing. They tried to kill my daughter to weaken my position. I am sorry, Daewon said. Sorry. Hana looked at him with confusion. Why would you be sorry? You saved her life when my own people tried to take it, because you lost 2 years with your daughter. 2 years you can never get back. The Queen was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. Tell me about those 2 years. What was she like? So Day One told her. He told her about Nari's first words in his language, about how she learned to fix machines with her small, careful hands, about her curiosity, her bravery, her kindness. He told her about the nightmares Nari sometimes had and how he would sit with her until she fell back asleep. He told her about the little traditions they had created together, the inside jokes, the moments of pure joy. Hana listened to all of it, her expression unreadable. When Day One finished, she stood up too. Leave. At the doorway she paused. You gave her something I could not. Safety, peace, a childhood free from politics and danger. Part of me hates you for that, but a larger part of me is grateful. Then she was gone. The then home world appeared in the viewport on the 12th day. Day one pressed his face against the glass, staring in wonder. The planet was beautiful beyond description. Massive cities that looked like they had been grown rather than built, oceans that glowed with bioluminescent life, forests of crystal, trees that caught the light and scattered it into rainbows. Nari stood beside him, holding his hand. Very pretty, Daewon agreed. This is your home. My home is with you, Nari said stubbornly. Daewon's heart broke a little. We will see what happens. They landed at the royal palace, a structure so massive that Daewon could not see where it ended. Millions of then citizens had gathered to see the return of their lost princess. Their cheers were deafening, but Daewon barely noticed. His mind was focused on what came next. The trial. The Thyvan High Court met in a chamber carved from a single piece of crystal. 12 judges sat in a semicircle, all of them ancient and powerful. Behind them, hundreds of nobles and officials watched from the gallery. Daewon stood in the center of the chamber, feeling very small and very human. Nari sat with her mother in the royal box, but her eyes never left Daewon. The chief judge, an elderly Thyvan with patterns that glowed like gold, spoke first. Human, called Daewon. You stand accused of serious crimes: unlawful possession of royal property, cultural contamination of a Thyvan princess, possible conspiracy related to the assassination attempt. How do you answer these charges? Not guilty, Daewon said clearly. The prosecution went first. Tall Thyvan lawyer presented evidence of Daewon's military background. He suggested that Daewon was actually a spy who had taken Nari for political purposes. He argued that keeping her hidden for 2 years proved malicious intent. This human, the prosecutor said dramatically, has corrupted the mind of our princess. He has made her forget her own people. He has turned her against her own mother. These are not the actions of a rescuer. These are the actions of a kidnapper. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the gallery. Daewon felt his chances of survival dropping by the second. Then it was time for his defense. Since Daewon could not afford a lawyer, the court had assigned him one, a young Thyvan female named Bo-Ra, who looked barely old enough to practice law. But Bo-Ra surprised everyone. She was fierce and smart. She presented medical records showing the extent of Nari's injuries. When Daewon found her, she showed communications logs proving that the Thyvan Empire had no presence. Kepler 442 at the time of the crash. She argued that Daewon had made the best choice he could with the information he had. He could have left her to die, Bora said passionately. He could have sold her to the highest bidder. He could have used her for leverage, but he did none of those things. He gave her a home. He gave her love. He gave her a childhood. Is that truly a crime? The chief judge called for Nari to testify. The little girl walked to the center of the chamber, looking tiny and scared, but when she spoke, her voice was strong. Appa found me when I was hurt, Nari said. He made me better. He taught me things. He was never mean to me. He told me about my mother and my people. He said I was special. He made me feel safe. And yet, the chief judge said gently, you call him father. Do you not understand that this human is not your real family. Nari's glowing patterns flared. Brightly, he is my family. Family is not just blood. Family is who loves you and takes care of you. Appa is my family. Shocked silence filled the chamber. Such ideas were radical in Thayan culture. Children did not get to choose their family. Bloodlines were sacred and absolute. But then Queen Hana stood up. Every eye in the room turned to her. I wish to speak, she said. The chief judge bowed his head. Of course, your majesty. Hana walked down to stand beside Duan. For a moment, she just looked at him. Then she turned to address the court. When my daughter's ship was destroyed, I believed I had lost her forever. For 2 years I searched desperately, clinging to hope, even when reason said she must be dead. She paused, her voice growing stronger, and then I found her. Alive, healthy, happy. The human standing beside me gave her something I could not. He gave her those 2 years of life. Yes, he kept her from me, and that caused me great pain, but he also kept her from my enemies. He kept her safe when my own court tried to kill her. Hana looked directly at the judges. I have spent the past 12 days watching him with my daughter. I have seen the bond between them. It confuses me. It challenges everything I believe about family and bloodlines. But I cannot deny that it is real. He loves her and she loves him. The queen's words echoed through the silent chamber. So I ask this court to show mercy. This human committed no crime. He made an impossible choice in an impossible situation, and he made it out of love. Before the judges could respond, alarms suddenly blared throughout the palace. Red emergency lights flashed. A guard ran into the chamber, his face pale with fear. Your Majesty, we are under attack. The conspirators have activated military units loyal to them. They are attempting a coup. The chamber erupted into chaos. Nobles screamed and ran for the exits. Guards rushed to protect the queen and the judges, but Duan only had one thought. He ran to Nari and pulled her close, shielding her with his body. Queen Hana stood frozen for a moment. Then her expression hardened into something cold and dangerous. She looked at Day One holding her daughter. It seems, she said quietly, that this trial will have to wait. Right now we have a palace to defend. She grabbed Nari's other hand, and together the 3 of them ran from the chamber as the sounds of battle echoed through the crystal halls. Explosions rocked the palace as rebel forces blasted through the outer walls. The beautiful crystal halls that had glowed with soft light now flickered with emergency alarms. Day One ran beside Queen Hana, keeping Nari between them as guards rushed past in organized chaos. How many? Hana demanded of her security chief, a scarred veteran named Bora, who had appeared with a squad of elite guards. At least 3 regiments, Your Majesty. Bora reported, her weapon ready. The conspirators planned this carefully. They have forces positioned throughout the city. They are trying to capture the royal family before loyal forces can respond. How long until reinforcements arrive? Hana asked. 2 hours. Maybe 3. We do not have 3 hours. Hana said grimly. Get my daughter to the secure bunker beneath the throne room. That is the most defensible position in the palace. Bora nodded and gestured for her squad to form up around them. They moved quickly through the palace, taking emergency passages that servants and guards used. Behind them, Duan could hear fighting getting closer. Weapons fire screaming, the sound of crystal walls shattering under heavy Weapons, they reached the throne room. Just as rebel soldiers breached the main entrance, Bora's squad returned fire, creating a defensive line while Hana activated the hidden door to the bunker. A section of the crystal floor slid aside, revealing stairs leading down. Go, Bora shouted. We will hold them as long as we can. Hana grabbed Nari and started down the stairs. Day One followed but paused at the top to look back. Bora and her guards were outnumbered 5-1. They were buying time with their lives. Day One now, Hana's voice echoed from below. He ran down the stairs. The door slid shut behind him just as explosions rocked the throne room above. The bunker was a large chamber carved deep into the planet's bedrock. Emergency lights cast everything in a pale blue glow. Computer terminals lined one wall, showing security feeds from throughout the palace. Hana set Nari down and immediately went to the terminals, her fingers flying across the controls. I am trying to contact loyal forces, but the rebels are jamming most communications. Day One watched the security feeds. Rebels were everywhere. They had taken most of the palace already. In the throne room above, Bora and her guards had fallen. The rebels were now trying to cut through the bunker door with heavy plasma torches. How long will that door hold? Duan asked. Maybe 30 minutes, Hana said quietly. The bunker was designed to withstand a siege, but not from weapons this powerful. 30 minutes and reinforcements were hours away. Day One looked at Nari, who stood in the corner trying very hard to be brave. Her glowing patterns were flickering with fear. He could not let her die here, not after everything. Is there any way out of this bunker besides that door? Day One asked. Emergency tunnel, Hana said. They lead to various exit points throughout the city, but the rebels will have those exits covered. We would be captured the moment we emerged. Duan studied the security feeds, his military training kicking in. He had been a soldier once before he became a scavenger. He had fought in urban combat, had planned defensive positions, had learned to think like the enemy. They are making a mistake, he said. Slowly, Hana looked at him sharply. What? Look at their positions. They are so focused on breaching this bunker that they are leaving their flanks exposed. They think you are trapped, so they are not worried about counterattacks. We are trapped, Hana said. There are only 3 of us and a few automated defenses. 4 of us, voice said from the shadows. They spun around. Bora stepped out from behind a support pillar, injured but alive. Blood ran down her arm, and her armor was scorched, but she was on her feet and still holding her weapon. I thought you fell, Hana breathed. I let them think that, Bora said grimly. Slipped down here before they sealed the throne room. She looked at Day One. You have a plan, human. Day One pointed to the security feeds. The bunker has automated defense systems, right? Turrets, barriers, things like that. Yes, Hana said, but they are designed for defense, not attack. We use them to create a distraction. Day One explained. We activate every defense system in the bunker at once. The rebels will think we are making a desperate last stand. They will pull more forces to the throne room to finish us off quickly, and then, Bora asked, interested now, then we use the emergency tunnels to move to a different part of the palace, while the rebels are wasting time and ammunition on automated defenses. We hit them from behind, create chaos, make Them think the reinforcements have arrived early. That is insane, Hana said. We are 4 people, even with surprise on our side. We cannot fight an entire army. We do not need to fight them all, Duan said. We just need to hold out until real reinforcements arrive. Make the rebels think twice, slow them down. By time, Hana looked at him for a long moment, then she looked at Nari, who was watching the adults with wide, frightened eyes. The queen's jaw tightened with determination. Bora, can you fight? She asked. Until my last breath, Your Majesty. Hana turned back to Day One. You have fought in wars before. I can see it in the way you move, the way you think. Who were you before you became a scavenger? Someone who made mistakes, Duan said quietly. Someone who is trying very hard not to make them again. Hana nodded slowly. Nari will stay in the emergency tunnel while we fight. It is the safest place. No, clears throat. Nari said suddenly. Everyone looked at her. I want to help. Absolutely not, Hana and Daewon said at the same time. They looked at each other, surprised by their perfect synchronization. You are too young, Hana said gently. This is too dangerous. I know the palace computers, Nari insisted. Appa taught me about systems and programming. I can help coordinate from here. Watch the cameras, tell you where the rebels are. Be your eyes, Daewon wanted to say. No, wanted to lock her somewhere safe and never let danger touch her, but he had also taught her to be brave, to be useful, to contribute. And they needed every advantage they could get. She stays in the tunnel, he said finally. But she can monitor the feeds and communicate with us through the security system. Hana looked torn but finally nodded. Agreed. They moved quickly. Hana programmed the automated defenses to activate in 5 minutes. Bo distributed weapons from the bunker's emergency armory. Daewon checked the maps of the emergency tunnels, planning their route. Nari hugged them both before they left. First Hana, then Daewon. Be careful, she whispered. We will come back. Daewon promised both of us. They slipped into the emergency tunnels just as the automated defenses roared to life above them. Through the walls they could hear the rebels shouting in surprise and confusion as turrets appeared from hidden panels and began firing. Daewon led them through the dark tunnels, moving by instinct and memory of the maps behind them. Nari's voice came through their communication devices, calm and clear. 10 rebels in the east corridor, 20 more moving to the throne room entrance. You have a clear path to the armory on the 3rd level. They emerged in an empty corridor on the opposite side of the palace. Bora quickly disabled 3 surprised rebel soldiers before they could raise an alarm. They took the soldiers' weapons and communication devices. Now they could hear the rebel commanders talking. The rebels were indeed confused. The automated defenses had made them think rescue force had arrived. They were pulling forces from their perimeter positions to attack the bunker for the next hour. Duan, Hana, and Bora became ghosts in the palace. They would appear suddenly, strike hard, and vanish before the rebels could respond. They sabotaged weapons. They spread false information over stolen communicators. They created the illusion of a much larger force, but it could not last forever. The rebels were starting to realize they had been tricked, and Daewon was running out of ideas. That was when Nari's voice came through, excited. Ah, ships are coming. Lots of ships. The loyal forces are here. Through the palace windows, One saw them, dozens of Thyvan warships, dropping out of orbit, their weapons already firing on rebel positions in the city. Reinforcements had arrived early. The rebels saw them too. Their commanders started ordering retreat, but they had one last desperate plan. Through the stolen communicator, Day One heard an order that made his blood freeze. If we cannot have the queen, no one can activate the palace. Self-destruct. We have 5 minutes. Dayan grabbed Hana. We need to get to Nari now. They ran harder than they had ever run, racing against the countdown. The palace shook as explosives began detonating in sequence. Crystal walls cracked and fell. Entire sections collapsed. They reached the bunker with 2 minutes left. Nari was waiting in the emergency tunnel, scared but safe. Hana grabbed her daughter and held her tight. The nearest exit is a 4-mile through the tunnels. Bora said, we will never make it in 2 minutes. Day One looked at the bunker's control systems. An idea formed, a terrible, dangerous idea. Bunker is shielded, right? Designed to survive almost anything. Yes, but everyone get inside now. They scrambled into the deepest part of the bunker. As the countdown hit 30 seconds, Day One sealed every door and activated every shield system he could find. He reinforced the emergency tunnel entrance and prayed to gods he did not believe in. The explosion was massive. The entire palace above them was destroyed. In seconds, the shockwave hit the bunker. Like a hammer, crystal and stone rained down. The lights went out. The world became noise and violence and darkness. Then silence. Day One opened his eyes. Slowly, he was lying on the floor, his ears ringing. Emergency lights flickered on, showing the bunker's interior. Cracked but intact, they had survived. He heard coughing movement, Nari calling his name. I am here. He managed to say, I am okay. They all were battered, bruised, but alive. Hana pulled herself to her feet and immediately checked on Nari, running her hands over her daughter to make sure she was not injured. Then the queen did something unexpected. She turned to Day One and pulled him into a fierce hug. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. It took rescue teams 6 hours to dig them out. When they finally emerged from the ruins, they found the rebel forces defeated. The conspirators were captured or dead. The crisis was over. The next day, Queen Hana made a formal announcement to the entire Thyvan Empire. Standing beside her were Nari and Day One. My daughter was lost, Hana said, her voice carrying across every broadcast channel, and she was found by a stranger who showed her kindness when he had no reason to. This human Day One saved her life twice. Once when he pulled her from a crashed ship, and once when he fought beside me to protect her from those who would do her harm. The queen looked at Day One and there was warmth in her eyes. Now I cannot give him back the 2 years he spent raising my daughter, but I can give him recognition from this day forward. Day One is officially recognized as Nari's adoptive father. He will have all rights and privileges of family, and he will serve as a bridge between our people and humanity. She paused, then added more quietly, he taught me that family is not only about blood, it is about love, sacrifice, and choosing to stand together even when the universe tries to tear you apart. Nari stepped forward and took both their hands, Hana's and Day One's, her two parents from 2 different worlds. 10 years later, Nari stood before a gathering of both Thaian and human. Leaders, she was grown now, strong and confident, ready to take her place in the universe. In the audience sat Queen Hana and Daewon side by side. They had become friends over the years, united by their love for Nari and their shared experience of nearly dying together. They did not always agree. Their cultures were still very different, but they had learned to respect each other. Nari spoke about building alliances between species, about learning from each other, about creating a future where children like her caught between two worlds would not have to choose. As she spoke, Daewon felt a quiet pride, this brilliant young woman who was shaping the future of the galaxy had once been a scared, injured child that he had found in a crashed ship. He had given her a home and she had given him a purpose. Hana leaned over and whispered, "She has your stubbornness, you know." Daewon smiled. "And your strength, a dangerous combination," Hana said with a slight smile. "The universe will never know what hit it." Daewon agreed. They watched together as their daughter stepped into her destiny.